Hello everyone, my name is Maya Hampton and today I will be doing my presentation on B.F. Skinner. His major theories were operant conditioning, radical behaviorism, program instruction, and teaching machines. At his heart of his contributions is a simple but powerful idea: behavior is shaped by its consequence. This framework helped educators design environments where desired academic and classroom behaviors are consistently and fairly reinforced. Over the next few minutes and slides, I'll walk you through Skinner's life, his training, his career, who influenced him, what his theories say, and how they still show up in the classroom today, and why his legacy still matters. In this slide, B.F. Skinner's early life, his full name was Burns Frederick Skinner. He was born March 20th, 1904, in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania, which is a small railroad town that shaped his practical, hands-on outlook. His father's name was William Arthur Skinner, which he was an attorney, and his mother name was Grace Madge Burr Skinner, which she managed a home, and back in the day they called that the homemaker. Skinner grew up in a stable, disciplined household. As a child, he loved tinkering, building gadgets, experimenting, and figuring out how things worked. He also enjoyed reading and writing stories. These early interests foreshadowed the experimental mindset he later brought to psychology, which was build a device, create a situation, and observe what happens and learn from those results. In this slide, we will discuss B.F. Skinner's early professional and personal life. Skinner first studied English at Hamilton College, graduating in 1926. He initially wanted to be a novelist, but after a few difficult years trying to learn how to write, he became intrigued by psychology, especially the idea of studying behavior scientifically. He then went to Harvard University, where he earned his PhD in psychology in 1931 and stayed as a researcher. In 1936, he met his wife, Eve Blue, and together they raised two daughters, Julia and Deborah. Skinner was very practical and inventive at home, so he designed a climate controlled air crib to make infant care more comfortable. And despite the myths, it wasn't a confinement device, and his daughter grew up very well. Professionally, Skinner's early work focused on building and precise measures behaviors and its consequences. B.F. Skinner's career and core contributions to educational psychology. Skinner held academic positions at the University of Minnesota and Indiana University before returning to Harvard. Um, and that's where he spent the rest of his career. And his claim to fame was the operant conditioning, which is the study of how behavior changes through reinforcement and punishment. He introduced key ideas that you'll recognize now in education, such as shaping, reinforcement schedules, and extensions. He also pioneered teaching machines and program instructions. His major work included the behavior of organisms, science and reading, verbal behavior, and with Charles, schedules of reinforcement. For educators, Skinner's big contribution was turning learning into something observable, measurable, and improvable through careful designs and consequences. Who influenced Skinner? Several early thinkers shaped Skinner's approach. First, we have Edward Thorndike, whose law of effect said that behaviors followed by satisfying consequences become more likely. We then have John B. Watson, who promoted behaviorism as a rigorous, observable science and steered psychology towards measuring behavior rather than speculating about it. Third, we have Ivan Pavlov, whose work on classical conditioning show how stimuli can come elicit response through pairing. And finally, we have Charles Darwin, which was a broader influence, and his idea of selection influenced Skinner selecting by consequences. Just as species evolve through natural selection, behaviors evolve within a lifetime of consequences. Together, these influences and influencers helped Skinner build a systematic, experimental, grounded theory of learning that translated naturally to the classrooms. How does this apply and what does this look like in today's classrooms? Skinner ideas show up in classroom in visible ways. Classroom management often relies on clear expectations and consistent reinforcements, praise on tasks and behaviors that are done well, tokens or points for meeting the standards that's supposed to be met in the classroom, and well defined consequences for rules violations. Instructionally programmed instructions principles appear in techniques like breaking skills into smaller steps, requiring more responses, and providing feedback and ensuring a high success rate before moving on. A way that this shows up in special education is the behavior support, applied behavior analysis, which most people know as ABA. He uses reinforcement, shaping, and data tracking to build communication, academic, and life skills. Oops, let's go back. Here are the impact, critiques, and legacy of B.F. Skinner. His lasting impact was within the foundations of applied behavior analysis, ABA, which is behavior modification, token economics. He also influenced instructional design, computer assisted learning, and mastery learning approaches. He did have some critiques and debates. Skinner's work was very critiqued for downplaying internal mental processes of cognitive psychologists like Jerome Berner and Naomi Kowalski argue that understanding learning requires models of thinking, language, and understanding, not just behavior and reinforcement. Also, many educators worry that the overemphasis on external rewards can dampen intrinsic motivation if used carelessly. Yet, although his work was very critiqued and there were debates about it, he still had an acknowledging lasting impact. He gave educational, powerful shaping behaviors, and the impact, critiques, and legacy continues. Um, B.F. Skinner continued writing in public debates years later. His honors and roles: he was the president of the American Psychological Association in the mid 1940s. he received the National Medal of Science, and he also contributed to the APA lifetime later in his life. In his final years, he delivered a major APA address shortly before his death. And then he returned to Harvard in 1948, continued writing and public lectures, and he later died of leukemia on August 18th, 1990, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The biggest thing with Skinner is that consequences do matter. You have to thoughtfully arrange practice, feedback, and reinforcement, and this will, better help create better learners and experience through success. Here are my references that I use, and thank you for listening.